Some years ago, as a historian, I began to explore the history of Kansas City's West Side. And one of the things that I noticed is that there was, past, it's no longer operating, but what was called the Ralph Sifuentes American Legion post. And Ralph Sifuentes, I said, who is Ralph Sifuentes? So I began to ask some of the people of the West Side about Ralph Sifuentes. And they say, oh, Ralph Sifuentes was the first Mexican-American GI to be killed in World War II. And I said, oh, okay, tell me the story about Ralph Sifuentes. Ralph Sifuentes was born in 1920 and died in 1943. And it's because of that death in 1943 that he became very well known, and the American Legion post in the West Side, which is a Mexican-American post, was a Mexican-American post, named their post after Ralph Sifuentes. Ralph Sifuentes left as a young man to join the theater in Northern Africa during World War II. And when his troop was being transported from Northern Africa up to Southern Europe to fight in World War II, his ship, the whole ship, was bombed by the German forces from an air attack, which was unusual because normally convoy ships were bombed or destroyed usually through torpedoes that the Germans would launch from submarines. But this particular ship was bombed from up above, and the War Department kept that bombing secret from all the families. They just said he was lost in war. They never gave any details. So the family and others who were descendants of those who were bombed on that particular ship and other ships began to push the War Department to find out what really happened, since they never stated it was a torpedo blast or torpedoes that sank that ship. But what the family found out, and many of the family members still live in Kansas City. His son does live in Kansas City, has been here to visit the exhibit. But what the families found out was that the Germans were developing a radio-controlled bomb that had never been used before that time on American and other Allied troops. And so what they found was that in fact his ship had been bombed, and it took 50 years for that report to be released to the public. And when they found that out, they were surprised, but they were a little dismayed the fact that the War Department had kept the details of that bombing secret for 50 years. There was really no need to keep it for that long. Nevertheless, the people of the West Side, and especially the GIs who formed the American Legion post, Ralph Sifuentes post, always talked highly of the young man before he went off to war. One of the things they said about Ralph Sifuentes in his teenage years is that he was a great dancer. And so some of the dance halls around Kansas City, so you could always find him on a Friday night dancing up a storm at one of the dance halls of Kansas City. And again, his family, his relatives remember their son and grandfather, Ralph Sifuentes, very fondly.